Okay, good morning, everyone. So welcome to our first panel of the Americas region. We have it titled, as you see on your screen, From Manual to Meaningful, Streamlining Student and Learning Data Request Workflows, with all the names that you see before you involved in this work. So as not to take up too much time from the presenters, I will hand it over to the team to begin the panel. Thank you all, and I will be monitoring the chat in case you have any thoughts or questions, looking for those opportunities to raise those.
Thank you, David. Hey, everyone. Thank you for joining our session today. I'm very excited to be here with a wonderful group of colleagues from across Indiana University. Together, we represent a range of departments and offices, including learning technologies, institutional analytics within University Information Technology Services, UITS, the Chief Privacy Office, and the Office of the Vice President for Strategic Operations. Throughout this panel, I will introduce each of them more specifically as they share their experiences and insights. Okay, now I would like to hear your voice within this Zoom room. I have created a few polling questions using Top Hat, which is fully supported and widely used here at IU. Please go ahead and take out your cell phone and scan the QR code on the left side of the slide. And you are welcome to enter your real name, or you can make up a very fun fake name, totally up to you, and no pressure. So once you are in, your screen should look like the screenshot on the right side of the slide. I will give you a few seconds. When you're ready, please give me a thumbs up. Great, okay. David, please let me know because here on my screen, I cannot see the chat pod.
Everybody's thumbs up. We're good.
Oh, good. Thank you. Okay. Now back to Top Hat. I'm going to present the first question. Here we go. In one word, how would you describe your primary role and your institution? You might put something like analyst, faculty, staff, researcher, administrator, or data scientist without space, whatever best reflects what you do. And go ahead, I'm going to close it in a few seconds. Okay. More than half answered. And more people are putting their answers. Okay. I think we are good to go. Okay, I'm going to close it. And let's take a look at the responses. Wow, let's see. Staff analyst, manager, administrator, teaching and learning, innovation researcher. Great. I really love that we have voices from across different areas of higher education. Amazing. Okay, let's go to the...
Sorry, Zihang. We just had
Yeah,
a request to get the link in the chat. I don't have that readily available. Does someone on your team happen to have that quickly to just
sure.
put in the
Can
chat?
you see my
There.
screen? Yeah.
Yeah.
So here is the QR code. If you can just scan that using your cell phone, you should be able to go. Okay. Now let's go to the second question. Ready? Go. How would you describe your current student learning data request process? Feel free to select one. Okay, a few more seconds. Okay, now I'm going to close it. And let's see the responses. Wow. Wow. Okay, it looks like many of you feel that your current process is not very satisfactory or is not quite where you would like it to be. But to be honest, it's okay, right? If anything, it makes today's conversation even more relevant and meaningful. We are all here to learn from each other and explore more ways forward. Okay, and then moving on to the last question. What's the biggest invisible cost of a manual workflow? Use one word to describe it. I'm so excited to see your responses. I see more people are submitting your responses, and I'm going to close it in a few seconds. Okay. Okay, I'm going to close it. And then let's see the responses. Insistent, let's see, analysts, labor inconsistency, rework, traceable, time, inefficient, time, knowledge, risk and stress. Wow. Wow. Stress, lost opportunities. Okay. Um, it's I think we all could agree that it's a powerful reminder of just how important it is to shift from manual process to something more meaningful, right? Okay, I'm going to close it and back to our slides. Thank you so much for all your inputs. Um, Okay, let's quickly look at today's agenda. We are going to start with a brief overview of IU's institutional context and then walk through our previous and current learning data request workflow. And then we are going to highlight some challenges. And after that, we'll have a chance for you to discuss in small groups. And then we are going to wrap up with by sharing key takeaways you can use or adapt in your own setting. And then before I move forward, I want to just briefly introduce IU. We are a large public institution serving over 68,000 undergraduate students and more than 20,000 graduate and professional students. Our community also includes over 6,500 international students from 166 countries and more than 21,000 faculty and staff across 9 campuses. So next, I'm going to hand it over to Andrew, who will speak about the importance of data governance and set the stage with some institutional context. And Julie, who leads the data management efforts at the university privacy office. Unfortunately, she isn't available to join us at this time, but hopefully she will join us in the Q&A section. But Andrew, her colleague, has kindly stepped in to share their insights. Okay, Andrew, all yours.
Thanks so much. So my name is Andrew Meyer. I am part of the data management efforts as part of the university private office here at IU. And a lot of what we work on is the organizing, storing, maintaining, and protecting data as it is brought in and stored and managed at IU. So the reason why data governance is so important is a pair of reasons. First off, we have to remain compliant. There are laws, regulations, and policies that ask that the data of students, staff, faculty, and other affiliates at the university is maintained and kept safe. Some examples of the laws include the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, which covers student data privacy and requires written consent from the student before sharing personal information, unless there are exceptions. There's the Higher Education Act, which restricts FAFSA or federal student aid data specifically. On top of federal data protection laws, there are also state laws within Indiana that protect specific personal data and have additional requirements for more critical elements such as health data or social security numbers. And then lastly, we have our own policies here at IU that handle data management and other privacy-related elements. If anyone's curious, the website for our policies is policies.iu.edu. And then second, we want to build confidence and trust with our students and constituents by ensuring their data is handled responsibly and securely. In order for the affiliates at the university to give us our data, they have to trust that we will manage it appropriately. Next slide, please. So on the right is a little diagram of the governance structure at IU. At the very top, we have the Board of Trustees. They are responsible and own all of the data at the highest level, the exception being intellectual property. They pass on to the next level down, executive management. That includes our president, vice president, chancellor, and specifically our CIO. The CIO appoints a chief privacy officer to chair the University Data Management Council. This council includes and assigns data stewards that participate in a university-wide strategic planning, governance, and oversight for all institutional data here at IU. The data stewards have specific data domains that they cover, for example, student, staff, faculty data, financial data, and other domains. And they each assign data managers to their team to help assist. From there, the decisions made by the UDMC, the data stewards and the data managers, go to the two groups on the right, the business function IT management and IT pros, to help enforce those guidelines, and then it comes down to the end user at that point. At the bottom on the left is our website for data management, specifically the page that goes into more detail for each of these groups and what their roles are with data management. Next slide, please. So looking at the data steward responsibility specifically, a steward assigned to a data domain appoints and trains data managers to implement policies and standards that support access to and training of the data in their domain. They classify institutional data and develop protocols for the protection and access in accordance with law, regulation, and policy. They approve use of applications and services for storage and manipulation of data based on that data classification. And they ensure training and documentation is available to the university community. Each steward and data domain has their own access for processes to manage access to various enterprise systems. For example, our student center, our learning management system, Canvas, our HR management system, and requests for that data. Since there's not one solution or workflow available to stewards and managers to create request processes, there are a host of in-house and third-party workflows that manage access to systems and data across each domain. Next slide, please. So here are some examples of the data sources, tools, and access that we use at IU. For our learning management system, we use Canvas, provided by Instructure Inc. This is where most of the online coursework happens, where students, faculty, and staffs can log into Canvas using their IU username or email and access the courses that are assigned to either their classes, or we also do our training for staff and faculty via Canvas for compliance with the laws that I mentioned a few slides ago. We uh, assign the access based on the schedule of classes, or again, if there is the needed courses for compliance with the laws that are required for that particular role. Faculty have access to learner data in Canvas for their own courses, for instructional improvement and operation. Our primary media platform is Kaltura. That is a cloud-based video management system that can be used for storing, publishing, streaming videos, and other types of media. IU is a member of Unizin for the digital learning ecosystem. And then lastly, and faculty or the instructor of record has access to the database, again, on their role. And then data virtualization, we have Denodo as a third-party rep, and then we have our own data warehouse that stores supercomputers that can house that data as well. Access for course and instructional improvement is well defined and streamlined in our documentation. Next slide, please. We have identified some gaps in our review processes for the following topics. Researchers with instructional review board approved research that doesn't have student consent requirements. IR and administrative offices seeking data for predictive modeling, and faculty researchers requesting identifiable data from other courses, including combining data from other sources. And on the next slide is our first steps to improve governance processes for learner data. First, we assigned a learning management steward to better review requests. Most requests that come in are tools or software that handle student data. So this helps our student data steward in reviewing requests. We created a form for researchers to request learner data. And we created a Microsoft Teams site to host requests and review projects with our Chief Privacy Officer, the Registrar, Learning Management, and the Research Data Steward. So that's about all my topics. Next, I'll turn it over to Stefano, the Manager of Research and Analytics in our Institutional Analytics Unit. He'll walk us through the previously adopted workflow for learning data requests.
Cool. Thank you so much, Andrew. So in 2015, realizing the importance of the emerging learning analytics and the impact that tapping into student data can have on student learning and student success, the Indiana University Bloomington, the Vice Provost for Undergraduate Education, started an initiative funding the Center for Learning Analytics and Student Success and a Learning Analytics Fellowship Program. This was practically aimed at getting at the intersection between regulations and access to data, facilitate access while maintaining compliance, ethical use of data, and ensuring impactful use. And so there was a unit on campus that was working with data stewards, data systems, and student records to facilitate faculty access and compliance. And so faculty were provided, who participated in the program, were provided data given that they would go through a FERPA tutorial, acceptable data use agreement, data privacy and tutorial, but also go through an IRB and a CT training so that awareness of what it means to do research and run analytics on records that involves potentially human subject meant. I mean, consider that the program was intended to involve faculty from different disciplines, so not everybody trained as a social scientist to deal properly with human subject in an ethical way. The program was providing funding to the faculty participating, needed a administrative sponsor. So the faculty had the backup from their department or school divisions, so that there was a sort of an administrative acknowledgement of the potential impact of the work that the faculty was proposing to do with the data. And they would submit a proposal, and then these would be evaluated. And in the fall, the projects would start, and analytical and data support was provided. Along with this program, there was also a goal of creating a capacity across the university, a data-informed culture on the teaching and the impact that faculty have on students and what happens in their courses, and also a community of faculty who would work together to understand the student experience and contribute to the student learning and the adoption of analytics in their teaching. And this is all for me. The leads on these programs are now retired. We continue providing support, but we're going to present on a new phase of similar initiatives with great potential impact at Indiana University.
Thank you, Stefano. So in addition to my role as a senior consultant here at IU, I have also taken on the responsibility of serving as IU's learning data steward since last year. So let me briefly walk you through our current student learning data request workflow. So first, the requester would email me with a data request, and then they are required to submit the learning data request form mentioned earlier by Andrew. And then for research requests, so approved IRB protocol must be included as well. And then I would forward the email, the message into our Teams space. So we created this IU DM e-learning data use Teams space, and then there's a channel called learning data requests. So the messages have been forwarded there to create an official record, and then Rich, our student learning data steward, and I will review the request and follow up if we need any clarification. And then if everything is in order and aligns with the IU institutional guidelines, we would approve the request. So as I mentioned earlier, this learning data steward role is still fairly new to me. So I have learned a great deal from working alongside Rich, our IU student data steward. So Rich brings a wealth of experience, especially when it comes to navigating policies and guidelines, particularly around the FERPA. So now I'm going to hand it over to him, and then Rich is going to share how he approaches student data requests and then the types of questions he typically asks during the review process. Over to you, Rich.
Thank you, Zihang, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, no matter where you are in the world. I'm Rich Nourie. I'm the Associate University Registrar and Student Data Steward. And, you know, on this slide, we've got listed some questions we think it's important for you to think about. In the United States, you know, we think about FERPA. If you're in Europe, you have to navigate through GDPR. And, you know, there may be other policy and privacy kinds of things in other countries that you have to take into consideration. So, you know, my primary advice to anyone thinking about doing this kind of research is, reach out to your institutional review board, because what you see here, these questions, these are the kinds of things they are going to contemplate. And it's better if you know these things sooner rather than later, because you may need to ask for consent. And if you get too far down the road and then you need to reach back, oh, well, now I need to get the consent for 1,000 people, that's not going to work. And you may have other limitations that basically alter what your original scope of the problem was that you wanted to look into. So the first question, is there a reasonable expectation of the students and faculty that the data would be used in this way, or is consent required? And that's, again, what I was just referring to as far as FERPA. You really need to understand, if you're in an EU country, how might GDPR play out in this, if I want to somehow connect student data with my learning analytics data. Again, do the work beforehand, simply because, you may not, if you get too deep, you may have issues. Most institutional review boards, second question, has the project been approved through the institutional review board? They will have advice. Quite often, they may tell you, you may be lacking in this area. If you can get consent, this can happen. If not, then you may have to change what you're doing. Will the outcomes result in decisions about the student or involve contact with the student? Again, this relates to FERPA, and also it can alter, how students respond to things if they realize, well, okay, this information is being gathered on me. I don't know if I like that, the way it could impact me. IRB, they will also know, is this an internal thing, or is this something you're doing externally? Sometimes there are exceptions for work, that connects learning analytics data and, student data. Okay, well, this is simply an internal thing where we are looking to improve instruction. The fifth question, can the data be identified or anonymized? Sometimes something that may not work due to volume, as far as getting consent, if you can pull back and be at a higher level, you may have an easier go with, getting approval for something like that. And then again, the final thing is retention, because, you want to have a clear idea, is your learning analytics, how often do they keep this data? Is it getting wiped out so long after so many years or months? So again, it's important to holistically look at everything that, an institutional review board might want to know about, how you're working with your data. And I think, if you're consistent and thoughtful, you'll probably be able to work through any of the IRB's suggestions. And again, these are the kind of questions we typically work through. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Josh. Josh is our data analyst, and he supports access to the student learning data across IU. And he's going to share some real-world use cases to show how learning data is needed and used in practice. Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, Rich. So yeah, there have been quite a few requests we've received over the years. These are just some of the examples, and they range from fairly simple and straightforward to quite complex and present some substantive privacy issues as well. The first request, for example, was very straightforward in that it was a single faculty's course. She was interested in how students were interacting with Kaltura video resources and whether those interactions contributed to some effect on their overall grade, particularly around when they might have dropped off on the video or things of that nature. The second request I've listed there was actually a wider initiative that was a partnership through both faculty and staff on one of our major campuses. This was the Indianapolis campus, and they were interested in identifying whether students were disengaging in their coursework through very simple measures of things like the assignment submission rates, number of logons with campus. And the reason they were interested in doing this for this set of students is because previously they had only used a survey measure at the end of the term, and that introduced quite a bit of lag, and they were wondering if they could catch those students earlier and provide them with advising and success resources. Or they can, and the last one I've listed there was exceedingly complex because it was a faculty researcher who was interested in compiling a large corpus over 4 years of asynchronous discussion data from campus. He wanted that in a de-identified way, which, as anyone who's worked with text data knows, is quite difficult because there's quite a bit of variation and flexibility that can go into how students identify themselves and things of that nature. So that requires substantive cleaning processes. And I say all of these just to kind of give a range of breadth and depth of what people are interested in, what they can do with data when we have a process, even if it's a bit convoluted. And I will turn it over to the next slide.
Thank you, Josh. Yes, thank you. Let's shift gears and talk about some of the challenges we have encountered. So as we reviewed our current process, a few recurring issues really stood out, and many of which might sound familiar to you. So first, there's a lack of transparency and tracking. So once a request is emailed, it's hard for the requester to know where it stands, and there is no centralized system to check the status. And then second, it's often unclear whether it's a request is for research or operational purpose, so which affects approval requirements, and this confusion can lead to incomplete forms and delays. And the next, manual steps create bottlenecks. A single delay in the approval chain could hold up the entire process. And then privacy, really the concerns also come up very frequently, especially with FERPA and the learning data that might be identifiable or sensitive. And finally, relying on email really increases errors and duplication, making it very hard to manage the workflow efficiently. So now I'm going to hand it over to Carrie, manager of the Learning Design, Research, Analytics, and Accessibility unit within UITS. Carrie has been leading our new Learning Analytics Faculty Fellows program, which is running this summer. And she is going to introduce this program briefly and talk about why a meaningful, streamlined data request process is so essential to its success. To you, Carrie.
Thank you. And also I'll throw in, I'm the Unison IT consultant as well. So we have the Learning Analytics Faculty Fellowship, or as I lovingly call it, LAF. And yes, I believe that learning analytics and a little bit of laughter should go hand in hand. But my role as the director of this fellowship isn't to lead in the front, but to quietly clear the path so that they can move forward without friction. So what does the Learning Analytics Faculty Fellowship include? So we have some presentations on learning analytics in action. We've had Stefano and Gina come and present. We have Zihang coming. And then we also have reflective assignments, conversations after these different presentations. And we use resources like Unison's Stepping Stones. During this fellowship, we have the faculty analyze their own course and program data so that they can identify what is available, what's missing, and what's needed. And this isn't done in solitude. We've brought them together and they discuss what they're learning and the questions they still want to have answered. We have 10 fellows representing diverse disciplines such as languages, nursing, chemistry, etc. And they're asking these real questions on how can I use learning analytics to reduce DFW rates? Can I track student competency in simulations? And what tools will help me understand engagement? One of the most remarkable pieces of our project started at launch. We had Ben Moats come and speak about his journey in learning analytics. And the focus wasn't on the technicalities, but rather the human experience of using learning analytics to support teaching and learning. Because I think that's also a key part, and that gets at these challenges that we're having. And the key takeaways that came away from this were it's okay to be new at this, because a lot of faculty fellows have not done this before. They're used to being experts in their field, and it's kind of scary to get into a field that they don't have an expertise in yet. Learning analytics can drive meaningful change, and support and collaboration are essential. So that is one of the key parts of this fellowship. We're about halfway through this pilot, and right now we're in the midst of exploring synthetic data visualizations. And these are from Unison, and also one of our colleagues, Bob Spoonmore, has been vital in creating these. And basically it provides these visualizations using fake data that can help us explore what kind of questions we might want to ask, what kind of data might exist, how does that look, and then helping faculty identify their own needs. And the hope is that by looking at these visualizations, we can eventually translate this into a place that houses the faculty's own data. And then we'll also identify what other visualizations and learning analytic tools are needed to support their efforts. And what we're hoping to do is build a community where faculty lead with data, not only in the classroom, but in publications, and also leading the university in this endeavor, because we really need to be thinking about the future of learning analytics and how that is going to impact higher education. And that's kind of the key of this fellowship. And as we've gone through the process, and I'm fairly new to this collaboration, I joined in last year. And so I've had a lot of questions, and I think that part of this process has helped to bring to light some of the struggles that they've already been struggling with, and it just is a reminder of what do new people face when they're involved in this particular process. And I'm going to hand it back to you.
Thank you, Carrie. Okay, participants, now it's your turn to jump in. So let's move into our group discussion. And I'm going to create some breakout rooms, maybe 4, I think. And then feel free to introduce yourself with your name, role, and institution if you are comfortable doing so. And then use the shared OneDrive file to guide your conversation and write down your group's insights. I see. Okay, thank you, Stefano. You already put the link of the doc in the chat pod, so I'm going to create the breakout room.
And I'm just going to pause the recording here, and then we'll resume the recording when we get back.
Thank you, David. Thank you, David. And then everybody, I hope you enjoy the conversations. And then thank you all for your participation today. We hope this conversation was both meaningful and helpful as you think about your own data practices. So we look forward to continue this conversation, whether online or in future in-person collaborations. Thank you.
Okay, and now we're going to transition to some of the question periods, but we are thinking about how what you did in the breakout rooms can come into that. Before we get into that, there was some questions in the chat that came through during the session. So we have Darian Drake. Would you like to ask it, or we can just ask it for out loud from the chat here? Either way. I'll maybe ask it. It says, Indiana U team, I would love to know more of the nitty-gritty details about teaching your instructors. What tools are you using to teach them? You mentioned stepping stones, but what else? Do you have faculty that aren't data savvy? If so, how do you deal with that? How are the instructors engaging with each other? So lots of details about what's happening, what's going on in asynchronous and synchronous spaces to support the programs in terms of, I think this might be in relation to the faculty fellowship or something similar to that. So whoever would like to speak from the team would be helpful to hear more information about that.
I think this is me and Josh. The tools that we're using to teach them, part of what, as an instructional designer by trade, I'm trying to assess what's going on with the different faculty members. And I know that, data can be a scary thing if that's not your gig. So one of the strategies that we use for the faculty is just to start the process with the story of Ben Motes, not from a technical perspective, but really focusing on what was he experiencing as he went through this? What kind of questions? What kind of challenges? How did he deal with that? And we've done a lot of reflection on these kinds of things, and we've been pulling that together in more of a anonymized fashion so that we can talk through what their similarities are. So I think that's one way, is just having them answer certain questions and think through, what do I need? What do I have? What do I want to know more about? And I will tell you that the tools that I'm using, I'm trying to tailor the experience to where my faculty members are. You can't assume that because it's not a skill set that is universal across everyone. So you kind of have to get a sense of where your learners are, instructional design. So that's part of this. I have had different speakers come and talk about their experience and how they use analytics. But Josh has been really a great partner on this, and he comes in and does like a group consultation on what kinds of tools we have. So we have the synthetic visualizations that Bob Spoonmore played a key role in, and that uses the Unison synthetic data, and then we can have conversations on that. And we have done our initial launch. I'm sorry, I'm kind of jumping all over here. I'm looking at all the questions here. But that the initial launch was in person, and then the rest of the sessions are virtual. And we use Canvas to host the Stepping Stones curriculum, but that is a resource that they can use as part of their journey. But the focus has been on doing like the different displays, having the conversations during the get together, and then having those reflective moments so that they can think through where they're at. And we do meet together synchronously as well. I think that answers all of those questions. I don't know if Josh, you want to add anything?
If there's time, how are we doing on time?
We do still have a couple minutes. I don't need too much time for wrap up. I think we're scheduled to end this session at the 15 on 12:15 or 10:15.
Okay. I would just like to maybe expand on what Carrie was saying. It's definitely starting with very basic resources, either through internal Canvas resources such as analytics, new analytics, but also just getting a sense of what faculty questions are, even if they're not experts at working or writing with intensive data sets, just getting them used to start thinking about this, and usually just extending this as a notion of assessment itself. This is just another way to look at how to evaluate students or understand what students might be struggling with or where issues might be aligned within your teaching practices. So that's one of the framing starting points we tend to look for.
Okay, thank you both. Does anyone from their breakout groups want to share maybe what one of the questions that they had that the panel might think about answering here? Were there any kind of lingering questions from the breakout groups?
We had a conversation about adopting, dealing with the abundance of data that is available from Canvas and learning management system, for example, and how to access them, this data, and deal with vastness of this source of information potentially, but also a risk associated with going into very intimate processes of potential instructions and student interaction with the material. And so how, Josh, I don't know if you, and Andrew, you want to speak about that, or Carrie? No volunteer.
What would be the question? I just want to make sure that I'm.
The question is how is access? We are building on, for example, the synthetic data set to get an in-way in what is available through Canvas or learning management system and digital information about the students. But then ensuring access and faculty being able to use this data and this information, how is it managed and envisioned at Indiana?
I think it's still a work in progress. And it sounds like, at least from the breakout room that I was in, that we're not alone on this, that folks are still trying to come up with the process on how to manage that. I think one of the key parts of helping faculty with this is helping them be part of the conversation, inviting them into the conversation. The technicalities are all important, but sometimes you have to get the buy-in and the welcome to the conversation, the invitation to the conversation before you can go that deep, because it can be very scary. I feel like there's a lot of pressure on faculty to be experts in everything, and that they need to always look like they know everything, and nobody knows everything. And I think making it welcoming so that it's okay for you to be new at this. It's okay for you to ask questions. Your peers are asking the same questions. And so I think that's part of the process, is just opening the door and allowing for folks to just be new and ask whatever they need to ask. I don't know if that gets at the question that you're asking.
And if that is the direction, I know we have a bunch of training, both online and available via our support center to help the faculty if they're not confident in their abilities on Canvas, and in those courses they go over the best practices for managing and using that student data.
Great, thank you. Do we have one more quick question? We probably have time for just the one more. Okay, not hearing or seeing any at this point. So I suppose what we'll do now is we'll say thank you to our presenters. I'm going to just stop the recording.